This story was originally written in 1912 and is by Edward Frederick Benson. It's from The Room in the Tower and Other Stories. I saw a month ago in an Italian paper that the Villa Cascana, in which I once stayed, had been pulled down, and that a manufactory of some sort was in process of erection on its site. There is therefore no longer any reason for refraining from writing of those things which I myself saw, or imagined I saw, in a certain room and on a certain landing of the villa in question, nor from mentioning the circumstances which I followed, which may or may not, according to the opinion of the reader, throw some light on, or be somehow connected with this experience. The Villa Cascana was in all ways but one a perfectly delightful house, yet if it were standing now, nothing in the world, I use that phrase in its literal sense, would induce me to set foot in it again, for I believe it to be very haunted in a very terrible and practical manner. Most ghosts, when all is said and done, do not do much harm. They may perhaps terrify, but the person whom they visit usually gets over their visitation. They may, on the other hand, be entirely friendly and beneficent. But the appearances in the Villa Cascana were not beneficent, and they had made their visit in a very slightly different manner. I do not suppose I should have got over it any more than Arthur Inglis did. The house stood on an ilex-clad hill not far from Sestri di Levante on the Italian Riviera, looking out over the iridescent blues of that enchanted sea, while behind it rose a pale green chestnut that climbs up the hillsides that they gave to the pines that, black in contrast with them, crowned the slopes. All around the garden the luxuriance of mid-spring bloomed and was fragrant, and the scent of magnolia and rose, borne on the salt freshness of the winds from the sea, flowed like a stream from the cool vaulted rooms. On the ground floor a broad, pillared loggia ran round three sides of the house, the top of which formed a balcony for certain rooms of the first floor. The main staircase, broad and of grey marble steps, led up from the hall to the landing outside these rooms, which were three in number, namely 2 big sitting rooms and a bedroom arranged en suite. The latter was unoccupied, the sitting rooms were in use. From these the main staircase was continued to the second floor, where were situated certain bedrooms, one of which I occupied, while from the other side of the first floor landing some half-dozen steps led to another suite of rooms where, at the time I am speaking of, Arthur Inglis, the artist, had his bedroom and studio. Thus the landing outside my bedroom at the top of the house, commanding both the landing of my first floor and also the steps that led to Inglis's rooms. Jim Stanley and his wife, finally, whose guest I was, occupied rooms in another wing of the house, where also were the servants' quarters. I arrived just in time for lunch on a brilliant noon of mid-May. The garden was shouting of color and fragrance, and not less delightfully after my broiling walk up from the marina should have been coming from the reverberating heat and blaze of the day to the marble coolness of the villa. Only, the reader has my bare word for this and nothing more. The moment I set foot in the house I felt that something was wrong. This feeling, I say, was quite vague, though very strong, and I remember that when I saw letters waiting for me on the table in the hall, I felt certain that the explanation was there. I was convinced that there was bad news of some sort for me. Yet when I opened them I found no such explanation of my premonition. My correspondence all reeked of prosperity. Yet this clear miscarriage of a presentiment did not dissipate my uneasiness. In that cool, fragrant house there was something wrong. I am at pains to mention this to the general view, as it may explain those I am to a rule so excellent on a sleeper that the extinction of my light on getting into bed is apparently contemporaneous with being called on the following morning. I slept very badly on my first night in Villa Cascana. It may also explain the fact that when I did sleep, if it was indeed sleep that I saw what I thought I saw, I dreamed in a very vivid and original manner, original, that is to say, in the sense that something that, as far as I knew, had never previously entered into my consciousness, usurped it then. But since, in addition to this evil premonition, certain words and events occurring to me the rest of the day might not have suggested something of what I thought had happened that night, it might be well to relate them. After lunch, then, I went around the house of Mrs. Stanley, and during our tour she referred, it is true, to the unoccupied bedroom on the first floor, which opened out onto the room we had lunched. We left that unoccupied, she said, because Jim and I have a charming bedroom and dressing room, as you saw in the wing, and if we used it ourselves, we should have to turn the dining room into a dressing room and have our meals downstairs. As it is, however, we have our little flat here. Arthur Inglis has his little flat in the other passage, and I remembered, aren't I extraordinary, that you once said that the higher up you were in the house, the better you were pleased, so I put you at the top of the house instead of giving you that room. It is true that a doubt, vague as my uneasy premonition, crossed my mind at this. I did not see why Miss Stanley should have explained all this, if there had not been more to explain. I allow, therefore, that the thought that there might be something to explain about the unoccupied bedroom was momentarily present to my mind. The second that may have borne on the dream was this. At dinner the conversation turned for a moment on ghosts. Inglis, with the certainty of conviction, expressed his belief that anybody who could possibly believe in the existence of supernatural phenomena was unworthy of the name of an ass. The subject was instantly dropped. As far as I can recollect, nothing else occurred or was said that could bear on what follows. We all went to bed rather early, and personally I yawned my way upstairs, feeling hideously sleepy. My room was rather hot, and I threw all the windows wide open, and from without poured to the white light of the moon, and the love song of many nightingales. I undressed quickly and got into bed, but though I had felt so sleepy before, I now felt extremely wide awake. But I was quite content to be awake. I did not toss or turn. I felt perfectly happy listening to the song and seeing the light. Then it is possible I may have gone to sleep, and what follows may have been a dream. I thought, anyhow, that after a time the nightingale ceased singing and the moon sank. I thought also that if, for some unexplained reason, I was going to awake all night, I might as well read. And I remembered that I had left a book which I was interested in the dining room on the first floor. So I got out of bed, lit a candle, and went downstairs. I went into the room, saw on a side table the book I had come to look for, and then simultaneously saw that the door to the unoccupied bedroom was open. A curious gray light, not of dawn or of moonshine, came out of it, and I looked in. The bed stood just opposite the door, a big four-poster hung with tapestry at the head. Then I saw that grayish light of the bedroom came from the bed, or rather from what was on the bed, for it was covered with great caterpillars, a foot or more in length, which crawled all over it. They were faintly luminous, and it was the light from them that showed me the room. Instead of the sucker feet of ordinary caterpillars, they had rows of pincer-like crabs, and they moved by grasping what they lay on with their pincers and then sliding their bodies forward. In color, these dreadful insects were yellowish-gray, and they were covered with irregular lumps and swellings. There must have been hundreds of them, for they formed a sort of writhing, crawling pyramid on the bed. Occasionally one fell onto the floor with a soft, fleshy thud, and through the floor was of hard concrete. It yielded to the pincer feet as if it had been putty, and crawling back, the caterpillar would mount onto the bed again, to rejoin its fearful companions. They appeared to have no faces, so to speak, but at one end of them there was a mouth that opened sideways in respiration. Then, as I looked, it seemed to me as if they all suddenly became conscious of my presence. All of the mouths, at any rate, were turned in my direction, and next moment they began dropping off the bed with those soft, fleshy thuds onto the floor and wriggling towards me. For 1 second a paralysis as of a dream was on me, but the next I was running upstairs again to my room, and I remember feeling the cold of the marble steps in my bare feet. I rushed to my bedroom and slammed the door behind me, and then I was certainly wide awake now. I found myself standing by my bed with the sweat of terror pouring from me.